Anthropic is about to kill OpenClaw with their new remote control release for Claude Code. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can start to take advantage of this and build your own co-working agent right now. So if you've been waiting, if you were, deterred from trying out OpenClaw or setting up your personal agent, now is the time to do it because we can do it a lot easier with Claude Code. If you've been watching this channel for the past few weeks, you know I was absolutely on the OpenClaw train, and I think what OpenClaw did and what it is doing was incredibly important and groundbreaking and deserves a lot of credit for getting us to this point where we're at today. But since day one, I knew, and I'm sure just like a lot of you know, especially anybody who's involved in the AI industry, we all knew that this OpenClaw thing was only going to last for a period of time until one of the big players, likely was always going to be Anthropic. Of course, we're going to come in and just release their own release that took care of this. And that's because a lot of what OpenClaw does is just built on top of Claude Code or Anthropic's models. So, it was just a matter of time before that happened, and it happened sooner rather than later, right? Before we get into this, ignore the crazy mess behind me. I just moved to a new apartment, so it's still a crazy mess, but I wanted to get in here and do this because it is super exciting, all right? When it comes to OpenClaw, I built it. I loved it. I was using it every day. Still am right now as I'm experimenting with different ones, but it was a nightmare for many people to set up. There are a ton of bugs. It got annoying. A lot of the times there were really annoying bugs. So I was super happy to try this out right away, and it's been, a really good experience so far with the new Claude Code remote control, and I built my own system inside of it with my own methodology. So that's what we're going to do today. You're going to be building this AI co-working agent. All right. So if we look here at the screen, we can see the Claude Code docs for this new remote control, which allows you to basically continue a local Claude Code session from your phone, tablet, or any browser using remote control. So like Anthropic always does, there's a lot of developer heavy language inside of their stuff. So you have to, for me and my audience of non-developers, you have to get past that and think about what this actually means for normal people who are not, or non-developers, right? And when it comes to this literally means that you can speak to your agent through your phone. That's basically, you could text your agent through your phone, you can control your agent through your phone, and it's super easy to do this because you can do it right inside of the Claude app now, all right? You can see when you start a remote control session on your machine, Claude keeps running locally the entire time, so nothing moves to the cloud. You can work from both, devices or surfaces at once, and it works really great, all right? Now, there's no one way to set this up when it comes to non-development work, all right? When it comes to setting up your Claude Code folder for non-development work. So what I'm going to show you and give you is how I do it in my day-to-day work, my methodology that I have been developing for over a year now that always gets plugged into these new tools, and that is how mine runs. So here, if you see in my folders here, I have a Claude agent. This is what it's going to look like when we get done building it out. This is the folder that we're going to be operating inside of with Claude Code. You can see, all right, there's a couple of things going on here, right? We have the Claude.md file, which, you are definitely familiar by now. And this is our behavioral instructions, all right? So this is, you're going to have all of this written for you when you set it up. I'm going to give you a complete prompt that you can paste into Claude Code, and it's going to shoot up like a onboarding wizard that you can build out your entire system, and it's going to write this MD file for you, but it contains all the behavioral rules inside, all right? And it tells your system exactly how to run and what to look at. Besides that, the next most important folder we have is the context folder, right? And I borrowed a lot of these ideas off of OpenClaw. That's what's so great about all these different tools and all these different, open source methods being released, is that we can build on top of them, right? So I combine my, own methodology, my own techniques with what I could, use from OpenClaw. And what we got here now are 3 main context profiles that I have built into my system that your agent is going to read and load up every time. The first is the USER.md, which if you're familiar with OpenClaw, that is a major part of that. This tells your agent everything about you, who you are, what you do, etc. Besides that, we have a business.md context profile. This one's super important. This is going to detail your business, everything about your business, whatever it is you do, whatever it is you offer, pricing, etc. For me, this is like detailing all about my LLC, about my content business, about my clients, ghostwriting, etc., etc. so that my agent always knows what our business environment looks like. And then the third most important one is your ICP, or your ideal client profile. In other words, your audience, who it is that you're targeting. So, this will depend on what your role is or what your work is. For me, for example, in my content businesses, I'm targeting non-developers who use AI for work, especially digital writing and stuff like this. So that is all detailed in this ICP as well, all right? Now, all three of those get loaded into your agent at every session so that it knows all your context. Besides that, we also borrowed from OpenClaw the memory logs so that your agent keeps logging its own memory and this gets pushed into its session each time, and then a long-term memory as well, all right? So we're going to set this entire system up, and you're going to be able to do this in like 10 minutes. Now, besides your context folder, which provides all the context to your agent, we have a couple more things here. We have a review folder, which, of course, this is optional, but I built this in because here's the deal. Claude the Claude Code remote controls. If you're familiar with OpenClaw, it's not going to be proactively texting you like OpenClaw would through Telegram or wherever. So instead, my workaround for this is to create a review folder that every time I'm working with my agent and it finishes something, whether that be a newsletter or a YouTube script or thumbnails or whatever, it is putting all of this inside of a review folder. It's organizing it all so I can open that every day and kind of just work down and review what I want and publish, etc. So we have a review folder, and our agent's going to automatically know to put all of its work inside of a review folder instead of placing it, in final locations. I like to throw everything into a review folder. This keeps everything organized, and then leave it up to me, the human, to actually move it to its final home, okay? And then lastly, we have, of course, our .claude folder with our skills inside. And the only skill I have in this one is my voice profile, which I've talked about a lot of times before. This is one of the most crucial skills you can have for any type of, marketing work, creative work, newsletter writing, digital writing, anything like that. You need to have ghostwriting, a voice profile, so that Claude can write in your voice or a client's voice, company's voice, etc. And then we'll put a bunch of more skills in there over time, right? But this is what the entire system looks like here, okay? Now, to do this, to set this up yourself very easily, way easier than OpenClaw, right? Forget about OpenClaw. This is so much easier. You're going to need to have Claude Code, okay? So here on the top, you can see my terminal, and you are going to launch up Claude Code. So we have Claude Code here, all right? And what you're going to do is grab the prompt below that's in my Substack. This is a big, 400 line, I think, setup prompt. And this is going to set up the entire onboarding of your system. So if we can see here, let me see if I can make this a bit bigger. If you could see here, we have a setup prompt to set up a personal co-working agent. All right, it's going to walk through a bunch of questions. It's going to set up all of your different context profiles. So that business profile, that ICP profile, and your user profile. This onboarding through Claude Code is going to set it all up for you. You're going to name your agent. It's going to build everything in a folder, and then you're going to be ready to go, right? So I'm going to take this prompt. You're going to grab this below, and you're just going to paste this into a fresh new Claude Code session, okay? Now, I can get rid of this now, make this bigger so we can see everything here. All right. Now, if you see, once you put this prompt in here, you're going to get, hey, welcome to the co-working agent setup. I'm going to walk you through setting up your personal Claude Code agent in AI that actually knows who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. By the end of this, you'll have a system that remembers your context every time you open Claude Code. And then it's going to ask you questions. It's going to ask you questions about yourself, about your business, about your audience. Those are what are going to set up your context profiles. Then it's going to ask about your writing voice, or if you have a voice DNA skill already. And then it's going to name your agent and build everything for you 10 minutes, all right? First question it's going to ask you is right here. It's going to want to get to know you, so you're going to tell it about yourself, share whatever feels relevant, who you are, where you are, time zone, background, what you do for work, what your company is, expertise, how you like to work, how you communicate. These are just some things I threw in there just for ideas, but you can be as detailed as you want about anything that you want your personal agent to know about you, all right? So, One recommendation I would have is to download something like Whisper Flow, so you can use voice dictation here, hold in your little dictation button and just start rambling for 10 minutes, all about your business, all about everything. Just vomit all of that onto the chat and let Claude, your agent, do the work, organizing that into a profile. You can also drop documents in there. Say you have documents about yourself or biographies, your LinkedIn page, social media, anything like that. You can drop all that in as well. And lastly, if you're like me who already has a bunch of these profiles, for example, I had the USER.md, I have the business profile, you can just drop that as well, all right? So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab all my profiles I already have here in the downloads folder, just because this will also save a bunch of time, but you can go through all of this or you can just drop them if you already have it. So I have a user.md already. I'm just going to drop it, give it to Claude, so it's going to be able to read all of this and understand who I am. It's going to read the file. All right, and now it finished up here, and now it knows about me. It knows who I am. Alex Fran, 28, based in Sao Paulo. Got to fix that. I'm not in Sao Paulo, but I am in Brazil. Solo operator, expert in AI co-writing systems, ships fast, blah, 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 blah. So all sorts of stuff about me it knows now, okay? Now it's going to ask about the business. Tell me about your business. This helps me understand what you're building, all right? Business, I'm just going to drag my BUSINESS.md file in here that I already have. This is all about my business. This is about my LLC structure. This is about my content business. This is about my service-based businesses, ghostwriting, all of that. It's going to get all of that context here, all right? All right, so now it has this. It knows my LLC. It knows what I do. It knows my core product is the co-writer system, my funnel, differentiators, plans I have for the future. And then lastly is the audience or the ICP. So you're going to work through that interview with Claude or just drop any documents you have here, and this will close out our context profiles here. All right, so you can see it just finished. We've got all 3 profiles locked and loaded, ready to go. Here's a quick summary of me. It knows my ICP is non-developer professionals. Core frustration is seeing Claude Code's potential, but feels locked out because they're not developers. The core shift, primary objections, and some language tips. And then lastly, it's going to ask for your voice. So it's going to ask you if you have an existing Claude skill for writing your voice DNA or voice profile, whatever you want to call it. And if you don't, it's okay too, because you can just, skip this part. You can tell it you don't have it. And as you communicate with your personal agent, it will learn your communication preferences, okay? It will learn how you talk, and it'll work on that itself. But I already have a skill, so I'm just going to drag it in here as well. Voice profile, done. It will recognize this. It needs to be in the format of a skill, which it's already built out for Claude. So it will just be able to basically just duplicate that right into our new system. And a quick note on this, you can have multiple voice profiles, right? Maybe you have one for yourself, for various clients. You can explain all of that. This system is completely flexible, just like any of the other ones, OpenClaw, etc. You can completely customize this, all right? So it has the full voice profile. And lastly, it's going to ask for a name. Choose whatever. I'm just going to put Alex Agent for right now. And that will name the folder that. So the folder is going to be named to that. The agent is going to take on that identity. And then going forward, you're always going to be working in this folder, all right? Going to give it permission to now create the full directory structure for this system, for this agent. All right, so it took just a couple minutes and it finished less than 10 minutes easily. And my co-working agent is now set up. Here's what Claude created. We have an Alex agent folder with everything inside of it. Let's take a look here on my desktop. You can see the Alex agent folder now with the entire system built inside of it. We have the Claude.md file. We have the context profiles, the memory, and the review folder with a little welcome in here, okay? So that is now all built out, and we can actually test it out. So now that this folder is out, this is one way you have to look at building these systems with AI. You need to start looking at them as folders of markdown files, folders of skills folders, because if you start looking at it that way, then you realize it can be plugged into different platforms. So this same folder, we can use it in regular Claude Code on the app. We can make a few adjustments and use it inside of Cowork. We can now use it inside of the remote control app or remote control. And then if you really want to go out there and say you just really hate Claude, you can also adjust this to work for Google Anti-Gravity, etc. So now let's test this out, though. The first way I want to show you is just that. We're going to go into the Claude app. and just test out the system, by itself. We've not even gotten into the remote control yet, which makes it crazy good. But all right, so we're inside of Claude Code now, the desktop app, and we have this Alex agent folder opened, and we're just going to say, hey there, and you're going to see it is going to read all the context profiles and know everything about me right away, all right? And that's how this works. Every session you can see is going to load up the context. So it's reading my USER.md, BUSINESS.md, ICP. It's reading memory. It's reading the skills, the descriptions of skills it has. Here you go. Context loaded. Looks like this is a fresh setup day. System just spun up with your context profiles and voice skill. And then we can work right here inside of Claude Code. So if you just want to work like this in this familiar interface, you absolutely can. I'm sure eventually, of course, there's going to be way more features coming here. You'll probably be able to remote control this as well. But if we do want to use the remote control, we need to use the terminal, all right? So what we're going to do here is go back to the terminal. And we're going to terminate this one and start a brand new one. But this time we want to open it inside of our folder, okay? So remember, every time that you're working inside of the folder, that is, the agent, that is the system. So here we have Alex agent. I'm going to open a terminal in this folder, okay? And launch it up. And now same situation here, okay? We have Claude Code, but now we have it inside the terminal, inside of this folder. And same situation here. We can just say, hey there, get it all booted up here. And then we will move on to the coolest part, which is controlling it from your phone. So it's going to load up its context. Same situation, searching for all the files. All right. So now you can see our agent running inside of Claude Code, our personal agent, and it's a completely fresh workspace. And to now enable this remote control, we need to put /remote control, right? You see remote control, connect this terminal for remote control sessions. You need to do that. It's going to connect, and now we could open it from our phone once it's done. So you have a couple ways of doing this. You can follow this URL. You can scan a QR code, and you can also just open up your Claude app on your phone, which is what I'm going to do here. So you can see my phone opened up here. Let's see, can I make this bigger? No, I can't. This is my phone inside of the Claude app with the Claude code. And now if we refresh, we should be able to see the new session. All right, I had to close down the app and refresh, but now that it's refreshed, you could see we have this in progress, and then this is our current session. So if you click this here, this would be on my phone, right? I could be away from my computer. I could be anywhere. Now you can see that we're looking at the same thing. So now we're remote controlling it. Same idea if you were using OpenClaw and stuff and you were using Telegram to talk to it, it's the same idea now. I could be at the beach, I could be wherever outside, and I could be talking to my agent doing work on my computer here, right? So if you come here and I'm going to text it on the phone, you're going to see it work here in the terminal. So I'm going to say, tell me about myself and your infrastructure. And we'll see what it can tell us about itself. Now you can see I typed it here on my phone, and if you look in the left, inside of the terminal, I'm not touching it, it's doing it itself, right? So same idea here. We have now bridged the gap between our device, our computer, and our phone. We could talk to our agent wherever we go. And here you can see it popped up on the terminal, and it's probably going to take a second to pop up here on the phone. And there it is. You're Alex McFarland, 28, living in Sao Paulo, Brazil, started writing, blah, blah, blah. You run your LLC with the co-writer system, my infrastructure, USER.md, BUSINESS.md, etc., etc. That's the setup. What do you want to build? And now you can start building. You can upload your skills to this folder, all of your Claude skills, your writing systems, your whatever work it is you do. And now you have a personal agent that you can take with you anywhere you go. Now, before closing this out, a couple main points, of course, that you should know. First, this terminal needs to be running 24/7 for you to be talking to it through this remote control. You can shoot up new sessions and stuff, but it's good just to leave this terminal running and then talking to it on your phone to avoid any problems. And at least that's from my understanding. This might be different. This might be changed. You can comment below if it's easy to launch up a new session from your phone. And then secondly is, I'm running this on my main computer right now, my day-to-day work computer. With OpenClaw, if you know, I literally have OpenClaw running on a completely isolated Mac Mini, okay? You know, that whole hype, I did it, and it wasn't hype. It works really well. I have a Mac Mini dedicated, Apple IDs, emails, browser control, everything dedicated to one Mac Mini that's clean, doesn't have all my information on there. And I'm going to do the same thing now with this Claude Code agent. I'm going to put it on its own Mac Mini so I don't have to worry about it messing with my day-to-day work, deleting anything. It can run, it can control its browser, and I can just keep experimenting without any worries. With that said, it's not necessary. It's probably not as necessary as it was with OpenClaw, because without a doubt, there's still risks with this. You need to be careful. It has control of your system. Anthropic itself says to be careful, but without a doubt, this is miles ahead safer than OpenClaw, like a lot safer than OpenClaw, right? So that's another important point. Feel free to run this on its isolated device. I would always recommend that, but also this is safer to run, regularly, with some, of course, being smart about it and careful. Thirdly is, as of right now, this can't schedule jobs. So for example, on OpenClaw, I was having it text me every day and analyzing my YouTube analytics and giving me a report every day, right? At 9 o'clock in the morning, for example. Claude Code agent right here can't do this right now. They did just release for Cowork a new feature where you can schedule things, but it's not here for this right now. But that's okay. I'm sure it's coming at some point. They're pushing this stuff forward every day. And that's why I have the review folder here as a workaround, so that, for example, instead of it messaging me every day, I can just, have it review certain things or have it carry out certain tasks and drop it in the review, and I can review periodically. There's probably workarounds to set up jobs. If you know, let me know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you set up your own personal agent with Claude Code now, using the new remote control. Pretty sure, in my opinion, OpenClaw dead in the water. Claude Code will take this over. So go build it out. Way easier. If you were ever scared of OpenClaw, now is your time to try it out. And as always, whenever you have all this hype about these things coming out, for example, OpenClaw, I get into the hype. I follow it because this is what I do. Everything I do revolves around AI. But I tell you all the time, don't freak out. Just wait for the stuff to mature, because it's not going to take long. And as you can see, this took like less than a month for Anthropic to come out with their own version of something like this and working towards it. So all you have to do is wait for it to mature. You're not going to miss out if you don't want to. And lastly, grab that setup prompt, subscribe to my Substack, subscribe to this YouTube. We'll be building a lot inside of here because it's just a lot better than OpenClaw, in my opinion.